Hi everyone, my name is Robin Kerber. I'm the Farm and Seed to School Coordinator here at the Child Nutrition Program with Maine Department of Education. And today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make a carrot and quinoa muffin using some locally sourced ingredients. So we've got our local carrots that I've shredded. We have some local yogurt, some Milkhouse yogurt. This is just a whole milk yogurt. And then some sunflower oil, which is from Aroostook County, Maine. And then the flour and the eggs are also local. All of this can easily be substituted out for just regular ingredients that you have in your kitchens, but just wanted to highlight here that you can source quite a bit of this recipe from a local farmer or producer. So the first thing that we're going to do here, this is just like a very standard muffin recipe using the blending technique. So the blending technique is where you mix your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients, and then you fold your wet ingredients into your dry. And then if you have any kind of like extra special things, you mix those in at the end. And anytime you're making a muffin or something similar like a cake, you really just want to make sure that you're not over mixing, because if you're mixing and you're stirring too much, it's just going to result in a really tough baked good. And of course, you want your muffin to just be super light and delicate and crumbly. So the only exceptions here is we've got a couple other funky ingredients. We've got some yogurt, and then we have some quinoa that I've cooked and allowed to cool, and then we've got some orange zest. So just a little bit of some different flavors going on. So in this bowl here, we've got our baking powder, and then we have two kinds of flour. We have just regular all-purpose white flour, and then we have a whole wheat flour, and we have some cinnamon. So you can certainly use all-purpose, but you would lose out on that whole grain contribution to the meal pattern. And I like to do 50-50 all-purpose and whole wheat instead of all whole wheat, because that can be a little bit, that can add kind of like an intense flavor, and it's nice to sort of lighten it up with that all-purpose. So if a recipe ever calls for sifting your dry ingredients, you can do that, but I only recommend sifting if it looks like there's a lot of lumps in your flour. Really, a whisk will do essentially the same thing. So you're going to whisk those, and then we have our wet ingredients. So we've got some oil, we've got our brown sugar, we've got our eggs, and I'm just going to break those egg yolks, and then I'm just going to whisk it all to combine. Then I'm going to take our yogurt, going to add that right in. You can use plain or you can use vanilla yogurt. This is just a plain yogurt. That. Whisk that in. Great. And then I'm just going to take our microplane here, our zester, and I'm going to take all the zest from one orange. So you will often see people going like this, and I prefer to do it the other way, right? So this way, the orange, you're moving the orange across the zester, and I think it's a lot easier to go too deep into the orange and get too much of that white, which doesn't really add any flavor, just adds bitterness. If you do it this way, I'm moving the zester and keeping the orange still, you can really see when you start to get down to that white. And as soon as I start seeing white, I stop and I move on to a different section, and then every once in a while, tap out the zest that's collecting in the microplane. So the zest of citrus, tons of flavor, tons of oil, natural oil in the peel. So it's going to add a really, really nice flavor to these muffins. that's good. That'll be snack for later. Give that a whisk. So we have our wet ingredients all whisked together. I'm going to switch tools, go to my rubber spatula. I'm going to take our dry ingredients, put it in a little bit of a bigger bowl because I don't want to be working in a confined space. And then I'm going to take our wet, and I'm just going to kind of slowly start blending that in. And at this point, this is when you don't want to overmix. So I like to do a technique where I kind of like cut down the center and I fold. Cut down and fold. Cut down and fold. And when it's looking maybe 95% of the way incorporated, I still see chunks of flour. I'm going to throw in my quinoa, cooked, cooled quinoa, and all of that carrot. So this is a really great way to incorporate some really healthy ingredients. That quinoa is packed with protein, super, super healthy. And then, of course, you've got these beautiful local carrots. And I think that carrots in a baked good, it's not a hard sell for kids because they're used to things like carrot cake. So they're not like, you know, why is this vegetable in my muffin? It's like a little bit more of a familiar item for them. Which is really important as we're thinking about incorporating some of these local ingredients. We want to make sure that we're creating stuff that, you know, is actually going to be eaten. So that looks great. It's a very thick muffin batter for sure. So we've got our muffin pan here. Just going to give it a nice spray. Good. And I like to give my scoop a little bit of a spray too, and kind of do that every so often as needed, and it just will help help the batter slide out. So this is something that if you wanted to add some shredded local apples, that would also be super delicious. You could add some walnuts. You could add some shredded zucchini. You could pretty easily replace the carrots in this recipe for shredded zucchini in the summertime. Use that local ingredient. All right, I still have a little more batter. I'm going to fill up another muffin tin, but I'm going to pop these into our preheated oven and check on them after about 8 minutes or so and determine a little how much longer they have to go. All right, so I just pulled our quinoa carrot muffins out of the oven. I did a quick check with a paring knife. It slides in and right out with no batter clinging to it, which means it's done all the way through. And now that they've cooled a little bit, they've been out of the oven for a few minutes, I can pull one out and see nice golden brown all the way around. So those are perfect, and they're ready to be eaten.